Some things are better left unsaid. Take it from me, some things are better left unsaid.
Hello and welcome to Unspoken, episode 19. Long and awaited episode. Many episodes ago, we had people asking for us to discuss vaccinations, and we were hoping to try get doctors on and virologists, but the doctors that I've spoken to were unsurprisingly not keen. But especially now with COVID-19 out and the vaccinations coming left, right, and center from all parts of the world, it's even more in the papers. It's been in the news here yesterday, the last week, really a lot. We have Janet Kieswetter back. Some of you will remember she was in one of our first few episodes. Janet, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you. And John,
Hey.
yes, we've swapped around, you in the evening this time and I'm in the morning, which is normally the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, vaccinations. It's a big topic, very, very controversial. At the moment, Facebook's blocking people. You can't actually post. I'll be surprised. YouTube's blocking videos about vaccinations. Facebook's blocking Twitter. Everybody's, unless you are outright saying everybody go get injected today, they pretty much going to block you. So hopefully we don't get blocked on the social medias we put it on. I'd like to think that we're more discussing vaccinations rather than one way or the other, but the facts are the facts, and people just need to decide for themselves based on that. Janet, tell us about vaccinations. You've got an opinion, pretty strong one, and we'd like to hear it.
Yes, thank you, Josh, for having me, and Jonathan. I'm a mom of 5 daughters, and like every good parent, you want the best for your children. And I think this is why vaccinations is such a controversial topic, because every parent feels how it touches their child and how what other people do influences their child. Whether they vaccinate or don't vaccinate their children, they could, by contamination, by a contagious disease, infect their child. And so they want to encourage you to do what will make their children even more safe. And that's why it's not actually an isolated thing, vaccinations. In a community, one feels what you do and what you decide does affect the people around you.
Yes, for sure.
So I think that's why it makes it such a sensitive topic. So my eldest daughter, we went to all the vaccinations, and it was just no question. That was 13 years ago. And that's what, like every other parent, you do what doctors and sisters and everyone expects from you, and you take them for regular injections. The same with my second daughter. And then as I had more children, I was struggling to get them to the clinic on time. And as life happens, my third daughter was more of a delayed vaccinations, just because of being so busy and hectic that the actual scheduled time doesn't passes. And but what happened with my second daughter made me pause and think and question the effectivity of vaccinations. At 6 months old, she contracted the rotavirus and gastro. And she landed in hospital for 3 nights. She was very high fever. And I sat there with her, and in a very cold, air-conditioned room. And she was expelling blood in her feces. And the doctor said it was very, very serious. And I was praying for her all the time. And thank the Lord, she recovered. She had antibiotics in a drip. And so I said to them, I've got here the paper of the vaccinations. She had the rotavirus injection. It was actually an oral vaccination at the right time. I think it was 12 weeks old of when a baby is 12 weeks. I said, why has she gotten this disease if she was vaccinated for it? And the doctor or the nurse explained to me that it's not always effective. She said the vaccine is not always effective, and sometimes one gets a different strand of the gastro, the one that you were not vaccinated for. So that left me wondering, I was thrown. So you mean I vaccinated my child, but she could still die from that same sickness because it's a different strand. So obviously I'm not a doctor and I don't understand all the strands, but it's the same with flu. Flu has got different strands. Every year a new flu strand comes out and different strands, and the flu vaccine is shown by example not to be effective for all the strands of flu. Pause here, I need to close the window. Okay.
There you go.
And so that second experience with my second child made me question the vaccines. And then when I was pregnant with my twins, I decided to read up everything I could on vaccines. I joined Facebook pages, obviously, who are anti-vax, and I read all the articles that they discuss about each vaccine, what it contains, the ingredients on the package. I isolated each ingredient on the package and I Googled it and read up about it. And I was trying to make a very good decision for my twins. And in the hospital, they were born at 36 weeks, which is 36 weeks and 4 days. It's not exactly premature for twins. But they had a low birth weight, so 2.1 kilograms, 2.7 kilograms. It's smaller than most babies at birth. And on the second day, the nurse came into my hospital room and said, okay, time for the children's shots and their vaccinations. And I said, no, thank you. I have decided not to vaccinate them. She was very flustered and shocked. And she's like, okay, let me just go call the doctor. And she went out and she came back with forms that I had to sign, releasing the hospital's responsibility. And it was a disclaimer, and it was those forms and it said clearly, this mom has chosen not to vaccinate her children. And I felt very good about my decision, because my question is, even though my children were born at a lower birth weight, that vaccine wasn't adjusted to accommodate that smaller size baby. They would have exactly the same vaccine as what a child born at 3.5 or 4 kilograms would receive. And the toxins and everything that was inside that, even the vaccine, wasn't adjusted to accommodate a smaller baby or a new baby. And babies are very vulnerable. And I don't think their immune systems are strong enough to handle vaccinations. And they would have gotten the hepatitis B vaccine, which is a sexually transmitted disease. So I don't know, and I still don't understand why babies receive that at the second day. But anyway, I'm sure a medical person might want to explain that question. So my twins are not vaccinated, and they have not received anything. And I can honestly say they are the healthiest children of all 5 my children. They have not ever had antibiotics. They've never needed grommets. They've never needed tonsils. They haven't had any problems whatsoever. They've been extremely healthy, and I'm very, very grateful. And I use a homeopath doctor, and she has helped them through any colds or sicknesses, but they've hardly had any. They've had ear infection. That's all. So I can testify that children that haven't been vaccinated have been extremely healthy, and where the second child has been more sickly, and she received the most vaccinations. She's the first one to contract the sickness, and it lasts the longest. It's as if her body struggles to fight it, as if her immune system is the weakest of all my children. So they were all breastfed, and we all eat the same diet. So I can only assume that immune system was not attacked, but was made weaker, in my opinion, was made weaker by the vaccine. Compromised. And children without the vaccines are given a chance to combat and to get stronger in themselves, to get stronger in their bodies. They form their own antibodies. And I can also just say, sorry to be so lengthy, the one thing that we did contract as children, all the children received, was German measles from a cousin who had been recently injected and vaccinated for German measles. So that's called shedding. The actual vaccine shed and gave our children and gave that child German measles or symptoms of it. And my children recovered within 2 days. They had all the spots, and they now have lifelong immunity for German measles. They would never need a booster vaccine or another vaccine before they have pregnant or during pregnancy. They now have lifelong immunity for German measles because they contracted it naturally and recovered from it naturally. Their body has built up antibodies to fight that sickness. So there are a few points that I've mentioned there, and that's my personal experience and anecdotal evidence.
So what made you go through with after you had experience with your second child? Then what made you decide still on the third child to continue doing some or other vaccinations? How come you waited till the fourth and fifth child, the twins?
Yes.
Was it social pressure or?
Yes, one doesn't immediately address or put together the vaccine and the sickness and all the questions through your mind. You don't, many parents don't put one and one together immediately. You think, you don't draw that conclusion that vaccine was bad for her body. Sometimes you go through, the child gets older and goes through more health problems before you attribute it to vaccinations, because we are taught and told that vaccines are healthy and good for our children, that they help us fight disease, that they keep them healthy, that they prevent illness and death in the extreme. So we struggle to accept that they might be harmful to our children. That's the opposite of what we've been taught. So that takes a few years even sometimes, and parents have to do a slow mind change and a mindset from, we were told to by professionals, by people we can trust. The medical profession says this is good for us. Now you see an opposite of that happening in your child, and many people can report that the opposite of what they were expected happened, and their children are sickly, and then they have to make a conclusion and say, we have to reject what we've been taught. And that's a process that doesn't happen overnight. We have to reject the whole medical profession, our beloved pediatrician, our excellent doctors who we've trusted with all of our sicknesses might be wrong. And that's hard. And then you have to take responsibility for your children and say, even if they get sick and go to hospital because of something that they could have been vaccinated for, I have to take responsibility for that. I have to take their lives into my own hands, and I will take the consequences from what happens.
Good.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Josh, you're in the UK, right? You have 2 children.
Yes.
Are you able to say no to vaccines, or what's the process, or has your children been vaccinated?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. That actually, my second child is due his booster vaccinations on Friday, which we got a letter. We actually got 2 letters because we kind of didn't reply to the first one. So the booster ones, actually the letters here somewhere for which diseases is actually for. As Janet says, it's a very difficult thing to decide or to consider, because I went and did research on all the diseases that are being vaccinated against in this round, and they are pretty severe. I mean, they all lead to death. One of them, the cells die in your mouth and die in your throat, and it actually blocks. It dies. Your lungs die, and it's and then you. Tetanitis, you go pick it up from the sand and from every day playing outside. So anyway, basically I researched all of them, and we were saying, we were concluding, and we did the research, and we were saying, well, you know, if they got this, you know, yes, okay, it's not to say that if they got this, they would die. That's not, that is, it is pretty, but it is a possibility, and it's a strong possibility that, you know, leading up to that is pretty severe. It's not like a flu or cold. You know, you get a flu injection. That's, as Janet was saying, you know, they're actually the best best year for flu vaccination was 40% accurate.
know,
So only 40%.
yeah, it worked for 40%.
That was the best they've ever done, because they have to literally guess every year what strand's going to come, and then they have to make a vaccine for that, and then they vaccinate everybody. Only 40%, so it means there's 60% chance that the strand's going to be wrong and that you're going to get it anyway. Colleagues that I work with, he actually got his the day before yesterday. He went and got his because he's got asthma, and if he gets the flu, then it's, you know, it's very, very serious. Possibly he could also die. It's a very strong possibility. So they are happy to get the vaccinations for that reason. And that's pretty much what we decided with our kids, was that we're not going to vaccinate them against something that's not going to put their lives at risk, because of the possibility that of what a vaccination might do the other way, what the side effects are. So we looked at the side effects, we looked at the possibilities, there's a lot of information, as Janet was saying, there's a lot of anti-vaccination information, there's videos, there's movies, there's articles. Even there's a government page here in the UK that if you've had anything happen to your child from a vaccination, you can claim. There's a website page where you can go and claim, and you can fill in your forms. So they've made provision for things going wrong. So basically that's what yeah.
If I can just jump in there, Josh, America's also got a vaccine injury hotline, and they have also a payout scheme. And it's actually scary if you were to research how much they pay out every year to vaccine injured families. It goes in the millions. And the claims they have on a regular daily basis, I mean, that's what also caused me to pause and think about this. And they investigate each of those claims. They don't pay out just for everyone that's phoning. They have obviously a very thorough investigation to determine, was this vaccine related? Is this injury legitimate enough for us to pay out and settle this with the family? So I think all of the pharmaceutical companies pay a percentage to that what's that?
The fund, all the it's yes. So that happens. So we that's the kind of the decision we had to make, because we also in the week, I think, or was late last week, Zanal, my wife, got a phone call from our doctors saying, you know, will my son be coming for his flu vaccinations? Because we opted out for my daughter at school. They have it at school now. They can, you know, give it to everybody at school. So we opted out for her. And then my wife said, no, he won't not. No, he won't. And then she's like, okay, if you don't, you know, if I may know why. And she felt very accused. And it's like, well, actually, no, she didn't say that to the lady, but she's like, well, why do you want to know why? And she told them, you know, we only vaccinate against life-threatening diseases. She's like, okay, that's fine. So in the UK, to answer your question, John, you don't have to. It's not mandatory. However, when your child goes to school, you have to fill in a form. You have to tick boxes saying that they are up to date with their vaccinations. I don't know if you didn't tick that box, if you would actually get into the school. I don't know if that's, I'm assuming that is the case. Often they want herd immunity. So they want a classroom, or they want a school, or whatever the situation, that everybody's vaccinated against a certain thing, so it doesn't come in from the side type of thing. So I think that's what they're going for, herd immunity, rather than, for instance, having one, let's say you can actually vaccinate against chickenpox, but let's say that was what people wanted. You know, they didn't want one child that's not vaccinated, so they could bring it in type of thing. also, if we go more current,
if I may,
sorry.
that sounds
It's
slightly
ironic.
slightly interesting because if they're all vaccinated,
Vaccinated.
and then the
Yes.
one
What's the
child,
problem?
there's no problem because the one child has it, then the rest of them can't get it.
They shouldn't be able to get it.
Yeah, that's very
in
true.
theory.
That's very true, and I mean that's a big thing as well. Our Prime Minister here, Boris Johnson, he's at the moment he's busy self-isolating because he came into contact with a person who tested positive for COVID, and everybody's like, but hang on, a few months ago you had it, you were in hospital with having it, so why are you self-isolating? So this has really thrown a massive span in the works and say, no, well, now with the current, you know, virus going around, and you saying you've had it, does that not make you immune to it? And if it is, then why are you self-isolating? So everybody's just asking so many questions now because they're just like, well, what does that mean then? Does it mean that everybody who's had it is not immune to it? Which, as we know, with diseases, yes, some of them you can get more than once, chickenpox, for instance, but we know your body makes an immunity. So if you've had it, then you really shouldn't be able to have it again.
Yeah. So just to finish off the one about people not, declining to get vaccine. I know in certain countries, as a meeting time seems to needing to be adjusted. In different countries, you need to be careful of how you decline vaccines. I believe in America, it is illegal to. It is considered possible child abuse in certain states to be declining medically proven vaccines. I'm not sure if that's just the life-threatening ones or certain ones. And so there was advice of how to decline a vaccine without showing that we're still showing that you love your children. So whoever's watched this around the world, make sure that if you do want to decline, then don't just say no straight up. Say you have to have a reason and understanding that you know what's happening. Just wanted to mention that across the board. Or if you do want to take them, then that's also okay if it's your choice.
Yeah, a lot of people. There's a thing that went around a while back saying that if you want to decline it, you're allowed to decline it on religious base because
Grounds.
of the fact that the vaccine was grown on aborted fetal tissue, which is a big topic, and a lot of reason. This was actually the main person that messaged me months ago, to ask us to talk about this, was because of that matter. Is that they felt that should Christians get vaccinated because of this issue, or this fact that it was grown on fetal tissue and aborted. It's aborted fetal tissue, and that's a massive thing. I mean, you know, many Christians are really against abortion, and is that, you know, to have this fact in we're like, what? We're all shocked, and a lot of people don't know it. I actually spoke to a nurse the other day, and she didn't know. She had no idea about that at all. That was even in the. She had no idea. She was quite shocked actually, and I'm like, well, it's in there. But while, you know, as John said, we are running out of time, so we might have to come back to this. But let's see if we can wrap it up anyway with that. There is what it is that it's not actually. People think that it's aborted tissue that keeps it keeps being made. The vaccination keeps being made, and they're using thousands and thousands of aborted babies, which is a horrible thing. But it's not actually the case. The initial strand that we're talking about, the MRM
MRC-5.
Yes, that whole vaccination was actually done in the 60s. The vaccination was made in the mid 60s. So at the time, yes, it was aborted fetal tissue, lung tissue was used, and other tissue was used for the vaccine. And the reason being is that the cells are the longevity of the cells and the reproduction rate of the cells. So the cells die after about 50 cycles. They start dying, and it's less viable for scientists. And the reason they're using human tissue is because it's a human vaccine, so it works better, responds better to that. but this whole vaccination was made in the 60s, and they take the made vaccination, and they reproduce the vaccination. They don't keep going back and making the new base. They don't keep making the new mixture. They've made it already, so they're just replicating. But that being said, any new vaccines that are being made that aren't those vaccines isn't the same process. The new COVID vaccine has used aborted fetal tissue as well to germinate, I suppose is a word, to be made in there. They don't go killing the babies themselves, thank goodness, but it is a very sad thing that it is used, which is really not a nice thought, but that is one of the things that is Christians say, listen, we shouldn't vaccinate because of that one reason. If that's the decision, then that's their decision. I think go for it. If you that's what you believe. It is a difficult thing to swallow, difficult pill to swallow. But I understand the science behind it. I understand why they've done it, and it was, if anything, it's kind of like, well, at least then the baby didn't die for nothing. It's kind of like it's the silver lining on a very, very horrible thing. A lot of people, when adults donate their body to science, this baby just didn't know about it. There's other things we can go on. There's other people talk about metals in the vaccinations and things. There are a lot of articles saying that there was no metals in, and there's lots of articles saying there are metals in it. The ones I was reading was saying that there are metals in it, but you do get metals from other stuff. Did you eat and drink water? There's metals in your water anyway. Sorry, I'm going on. Yeah, sorry, John.
Yeah, so one of the questions I did have was, so I haven't got children yet, and I'm going to consider in the future, my wife and I will decide what to do here in New Zealand. But one of the issues I have, and what I don't want, is to give my children a vaccine and then for things to happen. And I'd like you to know your thoughts on that. It would be extremely sad for me and totally upsetting. And I've seen many, many videos of parents who have said yes to the vaccine and things have happened to them. A range of things in terms of, yes, maybe getting the actual virus, but then also having lifelong effects, like literally visual or education, like literal effects. And I wanted to know your guys' opinion or thoughts on, have you seen that? Have you been around families perhaps that have had these, and are kind of wanting some advice, or like, does it happen? Am I is it a fear? Is it a legitimate worry that we should have?
It most definitely is. Josh, if I can jump in first.
Yes.
Vaccine injury is not just a myth. It's not just rumors. There are thousands of families who are living with the results of vaccinations. And I would encourage anyone who watches this to do your research and go and look at and research families of vaccine injuries. It's everything from SIDS, which has not been identified, and as there's no cause and no one can explain the reason for sudden infant death syndrome. And anti-vaxxers are convinced that it was the vaccines that those babies had in their childhood, in that babyhood, in the infant stages, that caused unexplainable death. That's what SIDS is. I've spoken to a doctor about it. She says it's an unexplainable death, and it doesn't necessarily or mean that it was vaccinations that caused it. So I said, yes, but then can you not agree with me that it could possibly be the vaccines? And they were just adamant not to even suggest that. And I know I'll be crucified for even suggesting that SIDS could be vaccinations, but that's what many parents have discovered in hindsight, that within hours of their vaccine, their baby's vaccine, that child was found lying in their cot, a perfectly healthy baby, with no previous symptoms of any sickness and just stopped breathing. And they've actually had a type of a stroke. Their head, their brains they couldn't accommodate the vaccine, and that baby just died. And I've read numerous stories of that happening to families. And you're welcome to watch the movies Vaxxed on, I think it's been removed from YouTube. I couldn't find it. And Vax 2, which talks to parents all across America who have been through this heartbreaking experience. And that's the worst that could happen. So just as vaccinations are there to prevent death, so I've heard so many sad stories of how it caused death. And that's why it's such a life or death decision.
Yes, I mean that is true. I mean, these cases do happen. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not. You don't have to look that hard either to find it. And also the fact that we said earlier, there are websites and they actually have forms that you can actually claim, and actually so side effects do happen, and death does in some cases occur. Here in the UK, as you can see on this time chart here, which I put up for those people who are listening to podcasts, it's a routine childhood immunizations. Now this is for this year into next, and they get their first bout at 8 weeks old, then they get it 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 1 year, 3 years and 4 months, and then 14 years old, 12 to 13 years before that. So there's different stages. So they've broken it up. So the first one is for a whole bunch of things. It's basically for diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, which is whooping cough, polio. So there are a few hepatitis B. Then the next one is a booster for the same things, and the rotavirus, which Jan, you were talking about earlier, which your daughter got. This is at 12 weeks old that they get for the rotavirus. And in 16 weeks, they get another booster. So it's relatively early as far as the baby's immune system, but it's not as early as birth, which is obviously a good thing, I think. Yeah, it's a difficult decision, but we, as being Christians, we always pray about it, and we always ask God to guide us, and we trust that the decisions we make are led by Him, and that we make a decision, and that God will look after our children. In the end of the day, they're gifts from Him, and their lives are in His hands. So we need to trust that either way, either you decide not to do it, and their lives are in His hands, and then that's it, or the other way around. But I think it's, especially being Christians, it's important to continue to rely on God for their safety either way. We always try to do their best. You teach them not to run across the road. You can't just think, oh, well, I'm going to teach my kids to run with scissors and they can carry on doing their own thing. You do your best as a parent, which you think is right, and you keep on praying. Yes, John.
Yeah, I think I agree. On the end of the day, in some sense, I feel like if you don't get vaccinations, then you can go to a doctor, and there can be medical science today that can probably keep you alive or keep you in a good state in many cases. But either way, if you choose to get vaccinated or not, or give your children vaccinations, it doesn't guarantee that you get any longer life or anything. Either there's some strands perhaps that can get you, or that you can you can get hit by a car or something like that. So it's not just, you're not saying that, okay, if you do this, then you're going to be guaranteed to survive longer, or if you don't do this, then you're going to be guaranteed to get the cold or worse. So I think there's a bit of I feel like this is such a heavy weight in society and stuff like that, but in some senses I would want to somehow encourage that it's not if you do it and if you don't do it, then that's it. This is, the world is going to change. That you're going to take two paths. I think there needs to be some kind of like you're saying, for Christians, God is in control, and if you believe that, but also this one decision is a decision that's important, yes, but not going to, I don't feel like it's. I guess it's life-threatening, it's life or death, maybe, but yeah. It just feels there's such a weight to it, and trying to relieve the weight in some capacity,
Yeah, it was just to come back to something you just said. Well, I was almost going to say earlier was I was listening earlier this week, and there was a doctor on the radio, talk radio, that I was listening to, and he was saying that all medicines are poisons. In the aspect in the meaning, he was saying that it's not natural to your body. It's not something that it's artificially made to do a certain job. So you injecting it, or you administering it, or you drinking it, or you taking it, and it's not supposed to be in your body. It wasn't originally intended to be in your body. So which I was like, whoa, that's quite to put it that way, that it's a poison. I'm like, whoa, that's a hectic thing to say. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, that is the case, isn't it? Your body is designed, or has been designed, to work in a certain way, and to respond a certain way, and to do. And so long we being healthy, and we're eating healthy, we're living healthy lives, it will continue to do that. It's not like it's forgotten. Oh, I forgot now to fight against a cold, or I forgot now to breathe. If you look after your body, then your body will do what it's supposed to be doing, and what's been designed to do, and it's to fight viruses. If there's like some random man-made virus that it's I don't know, and then I might need a bit of help, I suppose. But in the end of the day, I think it's just like I don't think a lot of people would go for a cold vaccination, if that not that it can be made, but you know what I mean. There's certain things that you just get. I mean, even chickenpox. Would we go for a chickenpox vaccination? No. It's part of life. You get a bunch of spots that are really, really itchy. You have it for 2 weeks, and then it carries on. It's not going to change your life. There's no need to inject something that's not supposed to be in your body, just so that you don't take 2 weeks off school with chickenpox. You know what I mean? Well, that's my opinion. I just think, there's times to do things, and there's times not. What are your closing thoughts there, Janet?
Yes, I would like to encourage parents to question everything that they administer to their children. Just like you, I've started reading the package inserts of every medicine I have, even the ingredients on bottles. And you are entitled to read and question the medical profession. So I would even encourage you, Josh, if you were to take your son on Friday, just before you had the vaccine, say, may I read the package inserts on those vaccinations? Because they all come in a package box. They have to legally write down all the possible side effects. And you are allowed to read that, and to, as a parent, to know what is possibly the side effects from this vaccine. And I know in the past we have just said, oh, possible side effects is stroke, or an anaphylactic shock, or death. But then you're like, that's in a very, very extreme case, or that's extremely rare. But why would they even put that on the package insert if it wasn't a possibility? So that's why all parents are weighing up the possibility every single time they inject their children. They're deciding whether or not, what do they prefer, the sickness or the vaccine, and that's why it is extremely heavy for us, John, as parents. It's a very difficult choice we keep having to make. It's not just once off either. And now with the COVID vaccine that's coming out, our lifestyles might be restricted. We, some governments might not allow us to travel if we've not been vaccinated. So these choices and decisions might become extremely life-altering. And if we weren't allowed to enter a shop at the moment without wearing a mask, God forbid that they would prevent us from doing public shopping or going to the grocery store if we've not been vaccinated. That I hope would never ever happen. So like Josh said, and every parent has to make this decision for themselves. It's very controversial, but please do your research. Please fact check everything you've ever read. Please make sure you do enough due diligence and make sure you've made a very informed decision.
Yes, no, I totally agree with that. That's all we can do as parents is do as much homework and research as we can, and then make the decision. And the rest is up to God. You know, that's what it is. You know, as I was saying earlier, you know, your family goes on the road every day, and you need there's some level of it's out of your hands. A lot of it is out of your hands, but that what you can do, and is do it well, and make a decision one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm glad we're able to talk about this subject. We are limited by time and different types of topics. But if you guys have a topic or have an opinion or a comment that you want to make about vaccines, we are definitely open to hearing that. Hopefully YouTube and places are also open to hearing different comments and suggestions. And yeah, hopefully the decisions that you make will be beneficial to you and your family rather than negative. Whether that's to do it or not to do it, we pray and are with you and trust that that your family's health will continue to be good and prosper, I guess.
Yes. Thank you very much. On that note, thank you for joining us, Janet. It was always great to have you. Thank you for sharing your input and your wisdom. And thank you, John, again. And we will see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.
Some things are better left unsaid. Take it from me, some things are better left unsaid.